What's up, guys? We're going to do this full build video here. This is a super kit bag. It is one of the larger bags we build. You can put small people inside of it. We see guys use it for wetsuits, dry suits, big equipment, firemen's turnout gear, big bulky items. You can definitely load it up and put a lot more weight in it than you would care to carry. We haven't built these in a long time. I'm going to build one out right now, show you how we build it, and then we're probably going to build some in the next couple of weeks here. So just check it out and you'll see how we do this. There's a lot of material in these. I've got a sample right here. See if we can seamlessly put this together without any glitches. It's been a very long time since I've built one of these. They're large. Ooh, maybe 20 years. Maybe 20 years. We have a lot. There's a lot of them out there. Process of elimination. We will build the things that we know what they are first, and we know that these long pieces are the zippers. So we'll go ahead and sew this zipper down. We'll start right here on the end. I'm going to tack that in as we do everything. We tack everything in. And when you're putting this zipper on, you can pull on this and really get it to stretch. You can stretch it out and have it several inches longer on the end. So be cognizant as you're laying this down how much tension you're putting on this. I'm holding them both equal and not really putting any tension, because when I do it on the other side, I need it to mirror. If you stretch one side and not the other and you go to zip them together, they don't zip together well. Now you can, there's that thread cutting. You can do zipper with a single needle, which I'm doing, or you can do it with a double needle. And if you have a folder that will actually hem and apply the zipper at the same time, you can do it in one pass. I'm going to do this in 3 or 4 passes, which also puts 3 or 4 rows of stitching in here. So if we ever cut any of the stitches, that zipper is never compromised. You see what just happened here? I actually cut this at length with this, and I'm actually coming up short. It's actually puckered a little bit. I'm about a ½ inch short. So rather than try to stretch that out, I'm going to actually remove this and go get a piece of zipper that's actually longer, because I want them to equal out rather than to try to mirror the tension on both sides. When you're cutting things apart, use that needle struck down there. Now that gives you 2 hands. That needle acts as a third. And when you're cutting this, when you're cutting things apart, you want to not cut the material. You want to pull on the items to expose the stitch and nick the stitch, not the material or the zipper. And you see how that's sliding? If you bury that needle down through there, it holds it right in place like a clamp. We'll pull all the thread out of that and use that zipper somewhere else. Let me go grab an appropriate size here. All right, let's do it again. I have this zipper upside down here, and I'm just laying it right along the edge of this Cordura. Get them as even as you can. And there's a couple ways you can go from here. You can turn it around, separate this, and lay this to where it's right there, right on the edge of the zipper track, or until you're more comfortable with it, you can do the exact same stitch that you just did right up against there. Now, depending what side your foot's on, it would probably be better. My foot is smaller here than over here, so I can get closer to the zipper track right here. Sew it, flip the work, and sew on the other side. What is going on here? Why am I unlaced? Now you can buy all kinds of different feet. A zipper foot typically only has a foot on one side, not on both. I've never switched my feet to do different procedures or tasks. Now I'm going to separate this. The reason I'm going to separate it is because I can't see the center there, the teeth, with it together. Now I'm going to fold this over here, and I'm going to line it up right on the edge. You could also sew this right there where this is all exposed, but I want these lips to conceal this zipper a little bit and give it a little more protection, especially on big bags like these. We're going to throw these in the back of the truck. There's going to be multiple bags and all kinds of equipment on top of these. So now I'm going to come back and basically just hit that same stitch line I did. And I'm looking at the work just as a few inches, and I'm looking at the outside. I want this set of teeth here to line up with the edge of this Cordura right here. And what that makes is this protection over the zipper. It makes it this zipper lip right here. That's what I'm after. Now you could leave it at that, or you could come back in and sew this edge here down so that it never catches on anything. and it will also conceal this inner line here so that nothing can ever cut any of those stitches. You will see most companies don't do that. So this zipper being held on here literally has 4 lines of stitches. What it also does is it's putting this second line in the top. If we stopped, this zipper would have the appearance of only being sewn on with 1 line of stitching. You know, I really thought when I just cranked it up, when I went faster, I thought it was going to cut thread. It's weird. I've not figured out the rhyme or reason as to why or when it cuts the thread. It seems to be in the beginning, so I don't know what's up. I'll have somebody out here shortly though, and I'll just tell him what it's doing and he'll make it stop doing it. I could figure out what it is, but I could also use that time and just be on another machine making money. I can also change the oil in all these trucks here, or I can pay a guy and he shows up and changes all the oil in all these trucks here.
What's more cost effective.
Yeah, and what you want to do with your time. If you like, you've you know, your entire life worked and bought yourself a house with a badass garage and you just want to use that garage and that's what you do, man, more power to you. I have a lot of things I want to do, and well, I mean, you've run around with me and you've done, you know, the videos from the weekends and stuff. You know how much we do on a weekend. I would much rather do that, you know. I mean, we're in a garage. There's tools and equipment and stuff all around here if we ever have to. Now I can no hand this. This is just literally, I'm pushed in a little bit. This foot is just running right against this zipper track here. And all we're doing is just folding this back. It looks just like this. We're just doing it right on the edge instead of in here where you can see it. I'm going to start this right here. Sew right into all the meat. And then I'm looking at this project as a couple inches at a time. I'm just getting it right where I want it, about 3-4 inches, setting it, holding it in place, sewing right to there, doing the same thing, resetting again. Most, if I was going to run these in large quantity, I would have them cut an entire roll, you know, hundreds of feet of this, and I would feed this right off of a roll. I would have the long 100-feet piece of Cordura, and I would have a spool of zipper, and I would run them through, and I would run it through an attachment custom made to fold this and push this through at the same time. I would do it on a double needle machine, almost like what we make our PALS webbing with, and I would run it all, and then we would take it and cut it at that point once it was done. That would be the faster way to do that. When people talk about you know, production and saving time, I know a guy, Andrew, a friend of mine, is making a radio backpack and he gets $450 for it. And Wrangler Star included it in one of the videos with Radio Made Easy with Evan. And people have lost their mind over the price of $450, and everybody has advice on how you would do this and what to do. Now, you could absolutely streamline that production product like I just talked about. The machine to do that, just the attachment piece to have made, to run that and, you know, feed the material, fold the material and apply the zipper at the same time, just the attachment is $1,000. So that's kind of out of the question for a home hobbyist. And then to have the machine together, you're about $5,000 to $6,000. And then you need a pusher on the front. That's about another $1,500. And you need somebody to assemble them all. So, you know, all said and done, to be able to run that process in a manner faster than what I'm showing you here, you're in that thing for $10,000. And that machine sits there, and that's all that machine does. You can't use that machine for anything else without adjusting it, resetting the distance between the needles, and taking the attachment off. That machine that's out there, we paid $13,000 for the machine with a custom attachment that folds our webbing in half, applies another strip of edge tape over the top, and sews it down the edge. 13 grand. We don't use that machine any time in the day for anything other than making that piece of material the way we make it. So yeah, everybody has some input. That's too expensive, blah, 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 but you know, whatever. Now I'm just coming back over and I'm just using this as my guide. I'm sewing right back over this stitch, or, you know, close to it. That's what it looks like right here. And that line right there is not through the material. So even if you don't nail this perfectly, you're only going to see the one you're applying right here. From the outside, they're not going to see it. And this here, burning this, you don't have to do that. We're going to conceal this zipper. You're never going to see it. You're not going to get anywhere near the edge of it. But burning the fuzz off when you're zipping your zippers and you're starting to apply, especially when you're learning to put your zipper pulls on, if you burn, just kiss that barely with a flame, it will burn the fuzz off of there, and you'll find that it's probably easier to set these on. And what I'm looking for is I'm going to get this kind of, you know where it's at, where I want it. I'm going to get it where I want it. I'm going to put this piece through, and this is going to run up and only go so far until it touches the track on the other side. And then I'm going to test it by sliding it forward. And is it even? Yes, it's actually perfect. It's right where I couldn't get any better. So I'm going to run this to the end and see. And even though you saw me sew them both exactly the same, I had a little more tension somewhere than the other one, and I'm off quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this one in. These were cut off patterns. They were all exactly the same. It's just over long distance. If you have more tension or pull on one side, it will stretch it out. It'll still work perfectly. Everything zips up. Am I even? Yes, I'm perfect. Now this here, you could take and cut this off. We don't have to. We're going to actually conceal this all. You're never going to see it. Nope, actually I do have to cut that off. I'll show you right here. I'm just gonna use my calibrated eyeball right there. When you get to the zipper, especially if you're using, I use very inexpensive scissors. This, the failure point here is this pivot point comes undone all the time. I just tighten that screw up a little bit. Gets me back going where I want. When you get to this zipper here, be cognizant and don't cut at the tip. Cut all the way in the bite, as big as you can get your hand to open them scissors up, and just intentionally run through there. If you're cutting at the tip, once that pressure goes, you have no control of when it lets go. If you're cutting down at the end in the bite here, you'll go through it like it's butter. Okay, so there's that. These are the end caps. These are the sides of the bag right here is what this is. We're making the top and the sides. And this is going to go right across here. And I'm going to come about a 1/2 inch in. And right now I'm slowing down. I'm very cognizant of where this zipper track is, because this is where you're going to knock a machine out of time. And what I mean by that, if you look right here, this is your needle, this is your needle plate, this is your feed dog, this hole here. On a walking foot, your needle goes through the feed dog. On a lightweight machine, your needle goes through the plate and the feed dog is underneath there for the most part. So I don't want any deflection when I hit this zipper right here. If you just hit it wrong and you're going fast, it'll push this, see this needle flex right here? You can push this needle out and hit the side instead of through the hole. And what that does is it jams this needle up into the needle bar and it knocks the machine out of time. So until you're very comfortable with your machine and while you're learning to sew, just be cognizant and slow your speed down and be very intentional when you come over that zipper. And it's more forgiving on smaller zippers. This is a number 10 zipper. Mil spec is only 8 and 9, and the 10 is considerably larger than the 8 and 9. So be very deliberate with it. So we're going to go right there. I'll show you why. We're going to do the other side right away. And we're going to just duplicate. We're going to do the exact same thing. And you know, the reason I tack at the beginning and the end of this is just because if I ran it straight, it could come apart. And when I'm putting the other pieces, the next step, it could unravel. So I always just tack everything. It's not for overall strength of the bag. Tacking when I start and stop isn't going to have any outcome on the final product of the bag at this point. It's to keep these two pieces together so I don't have to check them or worry about them when I go to edge tape them here. Just get in the habit of doing it on everything you do, and you'll never have to, it'll be second nature, it'll just be something you do. When I get in a vehicle, I just automatically always put my seatbelt on no matter what. And I never think about it. I only think about it if the seatbelt won't deploy or the seatbelt isn't present. All right, I got my edge taper here. This is a binder. We use 1-inch edge tape. I've never been able to get 3/4 to apply evenly. This edge taper right here, I just bought every edge taper that they had on Amazon and I think eBay. And some of them cost more than others. I want to say this is $35. I've literally used these cheap edge tapers forever. We've got some $200, $300 edge tapers. This does the job. This comes with a plate on it. And if you use it for any time, that plate will come off. You don't need to go have it brazed back on or soldered or whatever. The plates come off. It doesn't really do anything for me. So don't worry about having an edge taper that's expensive. So this just puts this 1-inch piece of ribbon tape in here and it folds it in half. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to sew back over this seam and conceal all of this. And what it's also going to do is put another line of stitching in here. And conceal all the edges where you could have some fray. And I'm looking at this as a couple inches of work at a time. I'm feeding all the material into the bite. I'm also applying a little tension back here, which makes this fold easy and keeps it kind of in track, in line. And you can put 2 screws in these edge tapers, depending how your plates are set up. I'll show you that in a minute. And again, we're going to be very cognizant where we're going across the zipper. If you're going to knock a machine out of time, that's where it's going to happen. Just like so. And we're going to sew over this again. That's why I didn't put more stitching or reinforce it any right there. It's because it's going to get sewn over the top again. But like right here, It's in there, so I just gonna rotate it a couple times, get the threads to go. But I've got this plate here, and some of your machines have this plate and some don't. I have some older machines where the threads are in the deck of the machine. And I'll go 20 years on that, but you give that to an employee and they'll have that thing boogered up in 6 months. And then you have to tap it out and make your threads bigger and then get a screw that matches it. Most machines now have this plate. So when they booger up these threads, you just remove this plate and you put a new plate in. It's a replaceable piece and it's made out of, you know, harder metal. So that's what that is. You can put two, and you'll also see these, usually these screws, some binders don't ship, but most of them will ship it with this gnarled screw here, this thread. And I just took some washers and put 2 or 3 together to stand this off enough so that I could get enough bite in here. You could use washers, piece of leather, whatever, doesn't matter. And I put that in there. Now you can put a second screw in here if you need to. I never do. To get it tight enough, I just hold this and I rock the edger back, and then when I rotate it forward, I get a little bit more crank on those threads. I see people cranking these down with stubby screwdrivers, which is great. A short stubby will do it. But I see girls out there with a ratcheting 90-degree little angle, and that's what's tearing up your threads. Rather than having skill, they want to lock that in place, and that's who's breaking my sewing machines. We never had any of those problems till we moved here. So there's that. And I want to feed this straight in. You can even start your sewing when you do your first piece of edge tape, run it out and see if your binder's laying it even and flat. Coming up to that zipper, we're going to be cognizant of where we come across right there. I'm applying tension here on the tape to get it to come up the hump and track. And there we go, that piece, we're out now. We can remove the binder. And you can also get feet set that matches the feed dog that's more aggressive to pull more material through there. You can also raise those feed dogs. You can raise it up and down, and you can adjust tension, downward tension too. Okay, there's that. Now we're going to over sew this. We're going to bring this back now. You can, if you want to, put a second line in this tape so that all you do is pull pressure and it can't go any further than where you are. I'm going to just feel this and know where this is, and I'm going to put this line of stitching right here, and this puts a third line of stitching in this piece held together here. And I feel it, I'm pushing it in place here, I'm applying some tension back, cognizant, coming up on that zipper because it comes up. It's literally more than a 1/4 inch up off the table. It's a big zipper right here, and I'm just going to tack that. It really doesn't need it. We made these super kit bags when we went to SHOT Show 20 years ago. When I first moved here from San Diego, we went out to SHOT Show, and we went out with James and those guys, and we did a private party at our suite. And I made 10, I think I made 10 super kit bags. And we built them all, and we only single stitched them. We didn't do any of this over sewing. We didn't edge tape them. We literally built them with just one line of stitching in the whole thing. And of course we tacked it where we started and stopped. And we loaded them up. And back then we were flying Southwest, and you could have 75 pounds in a bag. Last time I flew, which was years ago, you were down to 60 pounds in a bag. And at 75 pounds, when we went up to baggage check, all of our bags were over. And they said, do you have another bag you can split this into? And I said, well, what's the overweight fee? And they said, it's 50 a bag. I said, just pay it. We'll just pay the 50 a bag. And we flew with bags that were 85 and 90 pounds, every one of those bags. They were full of gear we were taking to Vegas. When we got to Vegas, those bags that were 80 to 90 pounds, we were on a third floor. We were at a third floor doing just a demo showing a bunch of guys gear at this townhome, I don't know if it was a timeshare, what it was. It's like just a townhome area. They were using it as apartments and shit. And on the third floor from the stairwell, me and a couple other guys took these bags after we loaded them back up after showing the kit, same weight in them, and we threw these out into the parking lot. And we wanted to see if they would break or burst or whatever. And I really didn't know what was gonna happen being single stitched. All of those bags, the only thing that happened to those bags was they had blacktop on them. It was kind of a fresh build or a rebuild or something. It was so hot in Vegas that the asphalt was coming off and leaving asphalt on the bags. None of the bags blew out though, and that was just single stitched. These bags, every bag we put out is stitched between 3 and 5 times. All right, there's that. Now, when we go to put this bag all together, I don't have a ruler here. All right, we got the ruler. For you guys that, and I know guys are like, no shit. To find center on something, you don't actually need a ruler. You can just pinch it in half and make your mark. And I just say that because I will look at things. I'll have done some procedure for 20 years and I'll see some kid on the internet do something and I'm like, holy shit, I never thought of that. I was so busy doing it the way I did it. But when we stop and watch other people do the same thing, you'll pick up something from everyone. All right, now those are my marks, so I can clock this when I'm going to put this bag together with the other piece. Now, the other piece. This is the lid. This is the flap that goes over. And again, we're just eliminating pieces. This bag should have one piece. Why do I have? It's got to be this. I don't know why I have 2 pieces here. Yeah. Okay, so this is just an edge stiffener, and this is really here just so that the snaps don't pull through the Cordura. And you will have, this will shrink up, so I'm actually short right here. If you look by a quarter already, I'm gonna really start cranking on this. And it's not so much that I'm stretching this out, it's just not letting it pucker up with the rest of it, is what it is. And what this becomes is, this is the cover that goes over the zipper, and it will have snaps right here to just keep, you know, debris, water, anything out of the zipper. That's all that is. We're gonna edge tape it, and at some point we're gonna take it back in there and we're gonna put snaps in it. This also that's what that other piece of webbing's for. This also will go right here. This goes here on the top, like so. And this bag also will get that piece on there. Am I remembering this right? Let's see. Yes, goes right on the inside of the bag where the snaps are. Yep. So we'll TDC this top dead center right here. And it doesn't matter left or right now until we set that on there. That's when it matters. So there's the center. We'll go ahead and take that other piece and apply this right here. Now I'm going to start right here in the center of this. Normally I would sew a line and then sew it in two separate sections, but the snap's going to go there and I don't want to bust that stitch line and have just some random thread that can pull out. The customer will see that and think it's a warranty issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm lined up with that center mark here and here, and I'm just going to start sewing right here. And you don't have, there's no reason I'm doing this piece in this sequence right here. I'm just doing it because I happen to know what it is right now and I'm just eliminating parts. And as you guys have seen, there are so many times on these build videos where I'll end up with an extra piece at the end of the build and I've already put the thing all the way together. It's like the time I took the whole dash out of my 1984 Ford Ranger. Got it all back together and had a lot of extra bolts and screws. That's probably why it rattled all the time. So if you have a 1984 Ford Ranger, I probably have some extra screws that go in the dash if you need them. Now would be a good time to take this and punch your snaps and such into this. And the way I would do this is use my top as my template, really. I would come in 1 inch on center right here. 1 inch, yeah. I would come in 1 inch on center right here. Again, I'm just using my calibrated eye right here. You guys should get one if you don't have it. You do this long enough, I can walk out. I can literally be walking by one of the tables or the sewing machine and go, man, that looks like that's not on center, and measure it, and it's off by a 1/16 of an inch. You'll just know. The machine, the hot cutters, you'll cut and you'll have it set to 1 inch. When we make our first cut, we still test it off the ruler, off the measuring stick, because sometimes the machine is just, it's hotter or it's colder or it doesn't sear as much, or especially if you're towards the center of a roll of webbing, the stretch is different. And I'll look at that and go, that's not 1 inch, it's off by a grain. And what I mean by grain, zoom in on this. If you look at this, look at it as lines in the material. That's what I call a grain. It's off by 1 grain. And you'll just, when you look at this shit for years, you'll just know it, you'll see it. So I would make my marks on center just like I did here. I would line everything up, and then I would take a soldering iron. I would get yourself a Weller soldering station. They're under $100. They'll go to 700, 800 degrees. If you're using a soldering iron that plugs in the wall, it's not going to do the same thing. If you're using a proper soldering station, the station plugs in the wall and the handset with the cord plugs onto the station, and those will go much hotter. And you can take that and just touch it through here, touch it through here, touch all three. You're just burning through to make a mark. Then you're going to take it and run it all the way through, and you're going to wallow it out from the other side. And the same thing here. Burn it through so there's a hole, then put it all the way through, and then touch it on the other side. And then your snaps are going to go right in there. Our snap machine has a cutter. We can pre-punch the holes. If you're not really good at that, it is easy to set it where you need it, but when you get your hands out of the way, people want to let off the pressure and kind of take a run at that snap press, and all of a sudden you'll have a dude you'll have these holes all over the place that just look terrible because they're off center and they're not lined up. That's why the soldering, especially when you're learning how to do this shit. A lot of you guys too, when you buy a snap setter, like proper snap machines, each machine only does one piece of the snap. I have 4 of them in there. Those add up. A lot of guys, including for 10 years, we didn't have any proper snap equipment. We used a hand setter, and we bought $150 hand setters, and we bought $10 hand setters. Like, you buy a replacement snap set at Walmart in the sporting goods section for $8, we use those. And you literally hammer them so much that the cap mushrooms over, and all of a sudden your tool's a ½ inch shorter. And we just went through those for years and years and years. So most guys aren't going to have a kick press, so the soldering iron really makes your product better. It makes it more uniform. So that's that. This piece, yes, we know it's short. That's on purpose because it's going to roll in, it's going to cup, and it's going to land where we need it to land. So these are done for now. I've already marked these on the big table out there just because it's such a big piece of material. What do I have? I don't know why we put these under here. Well, I kind of know why, but there's one of these is about 1 inch longer. These are the short ones, okay. So this is where our handles are going to go. And back to my original statement of I don't know why we put these on here. I still don't know why we put these on here. Well, I kind of do. I'll show you. So this, we're just going to run this right here. And this is just a base because we're going to sew some very robust handles on here. And the reason this is here is it's just so that in case that material ever got to where it would rip, it's just a more robust platform to attach the handles onto. And you're going to see the handles here in a second. So I'm just going to bring this around here. And it's literally easier. What I really need is just a piece of this webbing here and here. But it is much faster to have a sewing machine operator, seamstress, or I call them sewers. People seem to take issue because when they read it, they see sewer. Somebody's always upset about something they're not involved in. But it's faster for you to have your employees sew on this piece of material as one than to give them 2 separate pieces. And that's why this is here like this. And if you look at some of the military issue parachute bags, that's what this bag is closest to, a parachute bag, but it's much larger. This is how they have theirs. That's why when I designed this, that's why that was there. That's what was in mind. And while we're fresh from that side, we might as well mirror the other side and do the exact same thing. And then we're just hemming this. just so there's no raw edge there that can ever fray or be exposed. It's a very small hem. I should have made a mark here in the middle so I could have just traveled to there. We actually have a template that goes over this. And whoever cuts it is not who applies it. We have a person that stands out there at one of the tables, and they'll take stacks of this. We'll build these 24, 48 at a time. And he'll put his template over and make the appropriate marks. So when the sewing machine operator gets it, all they have to do is connect the dots. You can do that nowadays with a laser and just mark the material with a laser. And they used to do that on automated cutters. The cutter, in addition to having a knife, it had a little pencil or a drill. If you take apart big industry military equipment, you will see a lot of drill holes in all the product. And that drill was there to drill those marks rather than mark them. And then also you will see some of them have pens or pencils on those big machines, and they'll use a black light. The lights on the machines are black light to illuminate those marks that are on the material. And that might change industry dependent, depending on what you're for who you're selling. Okay. This is type 13 webbing. Type 7, type 13, this is the webbing that is in parachute pack trays. The parachute pack tray is the container that holds your parachute, that has your arm, your shoulder straps, and your leg straps attached to it. This is what that material is made of. These are the leg straps. I'm going to make my handles right now. These are the handles, but I'm going to do the fold over right now because it's easier than fighting it while it's attached. So there's center. You can make your handles however big you want. Mine SOE handles have always been 5 inches. You can do them at 6. You can do them whatever you want. I find center, go 2.5 each direction. I'm really just making these bolder, bigger marks so that you might be able to see them on the camera. Then I'm going to mirror this, and I'm just going to transfer my marks to the next piece rather than measuring both pieces. If we were doing a lot of these, we would just mark one, and that would be the gauge, and we would transfer the marks to everything else. Now, I'm just going to fold this in half. Now, when you buy material, I'm going to lock these wheels here. When you buy material like webbing like this, you will see type 13 and you will see type 13R. R denotes that it is resined and it is very stiff. And it switches from color to color for some reason. When I buy, everything I buy is R. It's type R, it's stiff. This Coyote stuff here, you can just bend it with your hands. Every time we get R in black, it is so stiff that I physically bite it with my teeth to crease it. And we see girls even use, we've got some welding clamped, vice grip welding clamps to clamp 2 pieces of metal together while you tack weld them. They use that. Some of it is very, very stiff. And I've never been able to get, and it's all the same webbing, same mill, everything, but the black comes way stiffer than we've ever been able to get Coyote for some reason. And that's been pretty consistent for 35 years of using this material. And it doesn't matter what manufacturer or anything, it's always that way. Huh? I ran out of thread, stopped. It'll sew across. There's a lot of times when I'll sew a whole run and look at it and I'm like, it'll almost push it together if the needle's running. If the needle's running hot, it'll kind of like barely melt it. It'll hold it together until you realize that it's not. When you guys buy bobbins, when you start sewing, you'll have a couple bobbins. You really want 2 bobbins for every color of thread you run. You can buy a package of case of bobbins. They come 100 to the box. Some machines, even though they're the same machine, we have nickel plated and we have these black plated bobbins. Some machines run better on one than the other, so be aware of that also. If your machine is timed correctly, or if it's tension, if your machine is tensioned correctly, when we're sewing on this, especially this material is a little more porous. If your correct tension top and bottom, where that thread meets, it should be in the meat of the material. When you roll your finger across here, you don't feel the threads. You do here, but not these. So, with that said, you don't need to sew around this a bunch of times. But, with that said, you should probably go ahead and sew around it a couple times. What's going to take the most brunt is that handle. And if that handle, something got up in there, it might cut that line of stitching. So go ahead and put a second line of stitching in there, especially if you're doing color on color. You can run fast. You don't have to nail the line right over the top. You're never going to see it. If you're doing tan thread or something on black, you'll obviously see it. Contrast thread, but you might as well. And the more stitching you put in something, the more rigid and stiff it tends to get to an extent. So that's the handle. And these handles are longer than they need to be because you can take this bag and put it up on your shoulder. When we go through the airports with these bags, one guy will hold one in one hand, the other guy will hold half of a bag, the second guy will hold one on his outboard and half of the bag in the middle. You can also throw these up as a backpack. The shoulder straps are just long enough for most guys to throw it on. It's not comfortable, but from, moving from point A to point B. All right, there's that. I'm going to find about the center here with my calibrated eye. We're going to go ahead and affix this Velcro here. We're not doing anything with the edges because this webbing is actually going to sew over this, the edges of this Velcro. Rain. It's supposed to rain this weekend. We need it. Huh?
I'll believe it when I see it.
Is that not what that was?
I don't know.
It had to be rain.
Done.
Huh?
If it is, it's done now.
Came off a little bit. I'm going to cut a little bit of that out. come back just a few stitches past where I ended there. And then I'm going to tack that in and apply that and get it right straight where I want it. All right, now these handles, this is the very center bottom of the bag. You can decide whether you want the bite, being where the webbing folds in half, which side you want this to go. It doesn't matter. Make sure they're the same though. So when you photograph the bag and the handles are there, one's not opposite. So I'm gonna start about a 1/2 inch past center here. And I'm just going to tack this in. And I've made several marks here. I'm just going to travel to that mark, and then I'm going to take that dot and connect it to the next dot, which happens to also be the edge of this webbing. Now I'm coming up to this edge here that's also folded under. It gets a little thicker right here. And I'm going to sew this right up to the top corner, right there. I'm going to sew across, and I'm going to come right down to this corner. Now I'm going to sew across here, right there. I'm going to come come right up here and make this square. Well, I've already made this square. I'm going to come on up, tack this in. This is the second line on the top. This gives it 2 lines of stitching holding this handle on. There's 1 line here. Then I'm going to sew to this corner for my X. Here is the second line here. The top line that takes the brunt of all the weight when you hold this is the top. That's the leading edge right here. I'm now going to X back over to my top line. And I'm going to put another line here. That gives you 3 lines of stitching in the leading edge and 2 lines of stitching in the bottom edge. If you ever got that off, you've got all this rest backing it up before you get here. You're never going to get that off of there. If it comes off, it's going to damage the material also. And I'm just going to travel down. Once we get here, you can tack this bottom across if you want to. I'm not going to. I'm going to run here. I'm going to back the work back up. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in place. You can do that if you want to. I'm going to do the other side so I'm not fighting both of these tails at one time. This is going to overlap this the same way we did 1/2 inch here. We're going to come 1/2 inch here. We're going to tack those both in. You can try if you want with this thick stuff to fold it under. Absolutely not necessary. We've never seen a reason or a need to. If you were running like a type 4 webbing like 17337, I would probably just so that it aesthetically looks better. So from there, I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. I'm also going to check that I do not have a twist in here that I don't want in here before I put this together, so we don't have to cut it all the way back apart. There's my mark. I'm going to overlap it by 1/2 inch. Here's that box X again. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then travel down is 11. You could also do this if you want. You could just tack it in right then. There's your 3 leading edges. Come around, put 2, and travel down, and not even put an X if you want to. It's mostly automated machines where they're putting those X's in there. So that, because it has to stay, that's the program of it. There's some other reasons too. If you want to see all the physics of it, Pointer's parachute manual, I believe it's Pointer's parachute manual, will tell you why you're doing stitches the way you're doing them. Now we're going to travel down. And really from here to here, we're sewing this down so that it doesn't catch on shit. It's not doing anything to support the bag really. Just keep stuff from being able to get under there when you're moving, catch you and grab you. This does cradle. Like if you look at almost all of our bags, our handles fully cradle the entire weight of the bag. Our tool bags, our kit bags, almost all of our bags have that. A lot of companies building stuff, they just kind of sew that handle on the side. It doesn't cradle or bear any of the weight. And it actually, when you do that, if this didn't come down and cradle this whole bag, all of that weight would be held right here, and it would rely on just that single layer of material a whole lot more. But all the weight in these bags is not held by the material, it's held by this webbing. Now right here, as long as you have a good sear, zoom in on this. That's a good sear. That's well melted right there. We don't cut this big stuff on our automated cutter. We use a hand spring-loaded cutter to make these cuts here on this thick stuff. Now I'm going to hold this. It's going to travel up. It's going to want, if you look close here, see how it's kind of pushing this back? I'm going to open this up and let that settle. And now I'm going to take one more stitch and I'm going to let that out there. There it is. Now it's in the material there. This webbing's thick and it wants, that foot wants to mush it up and push it out of the way. It wants to bulldoze it. Thunder. Guys, we haven't had rain in 2 months, maybe. Like they say we're in a drought. Like, I don't really notice it here because we hold a lot of moisture and we have a lot of waterworks here. So it kind of routes water from one place and the water soaks into the ground. But we're so dry, when my chickens run around out there, you see dust. So this will be very good. Everything we do here, it's about slowing the water down so that the water can soak into the ground. We don't want to use culverts to move all the water off the property. We want to retain as much water on the property as we can. feeling a breeze. It is really overpressurizing the building for you to feel any kind of air movement in here. You know you got some serious wind going on outside when those double glass doors up there move on their own. Ooh. I just sewed through that under there. Because it's short, we'll just unlace this right here. One stitch at a time. When I'm doing contrast thread and I run off a line, this is how I unstitch it so that I can re-hit that. And I'll actually hit the exact same needle holes even when I re-stitch it. That's the worst, man, when you're sewing some bag that is very, very expensive. Especially like if I'm doing it out of a leather or something and I don't have more of it. And you do something doesn't line up or goes askew, you literally take it apart stitch by stitch. Because when you're at that point, you've built that bag for hours and hours and hours, and you go to cut it with a razor and you nick the material or something, and you don't have any more of it, yeah, I'll spend hours taking something apart to correct it. Because that potential, if you nick it, you're done. You've worked on it for, you know, hours a day for several days, and you can't fix it at that point. It's like that tool bag in there, that leather hybrid tool bag. I got 2 of them sitting in my work bay. They're beautiful. I put them all the way together, put the liners, and then sewed the whole bodies together and realized I had sewn this down, but I never tacked it. So these handles are only single stitched on the whole bag. I can't sell them. I can't sell them. Guys have offered, they're like, I'll give you $1,000 for them. I'm like, I can't put that out there, man. It's gonna rip. I can't fix it if it fails.
You have some personal leather bags?
I do, I have 2. Well, it means they're here and I can show them to people. They're beautiful. A lot of times I'll be building a bag like that we're gonna put up for auction, and I'm like, man, I really don't even want to sell this. I just want to keep it. On the spiral staircase, on the stairwell, that's what a lot of that stuff up there, stuff I built. That I decided, huh?
You just couldn't sell it?
Yeah, I just didn't want to sell it. I'd rather just keep it. Like when we did all that Louis Vuitton stuff, I lined it all up. Like you can't just cut across because you'll cut some of the emblems. It's on a diagonal, so I had to cut all of that. We wasted so much of that material to get those to line up correct. What am I doing? I know this is 5 inches. Let's just make another mark. I didn't check that for twist. Good thing there's not a twist in it. You did?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Let's give it a clip.
Are you messing with me?
No.
When we sew these, if we were doing this bag in red thread, I would actually sew my box X's over more than once and multiple times on the leading edge and the lower edge there, so that that thread really pops. When you look at a picture, if we took a picture of this bag from 6 feet away, I want this to be more bold than the rest of it. And when we do contrast thread bags, it literally is like sewing the bag twice. It's twice the time to build the bag. Sometimes even longer. If you notice, you don't see any of the big companies doing contrast thread like that, because you can't do it on a production line. We've already got a couple lines of stitching here. Here goes this one. We're gonna zigzag over to this one. When you're going backwards through thick stuff, be very careful if you don't have very good foot control. And the reason we kind of control the machine, we can use it as a brake or to accelerate by pushing it, is this pulley here. That's why these pulleys are always, the paint is wore off of them. I can give the pedal a little bit to where it will start to brake, and then it will allow me, when the pedal's pushed down a little, I can freehand this if I need to get those last stitches in there. Or if I'm using colored thread, I'll do a lot of it by hand. Meaning I will turn the machine by hand here with the pulley. Okay, there's that. That is what that looks like. There's those X's, Velcro's in place. Now all we have left is, well, we have quite a bit left. But that's what we have for this. Now we will pick up our other piece here. These are already top sewn here. We have 3 lines of stitching holding this edge together here, plus it is edge taped. Now we are going to take this, and I want to start back here, because the important part here is we're going to follow this line of edge tape right here. Let me verify that. I think that's where that goes. Yes. We want this stitch I'm about to put in to come right through this stitch here. Whether that'll do that or not, we'll see. If it doesn't go right through it, it needs to be even all the way through beside it. So there's that. I'm going to pull a little tension on here. Every couple inches I'm going to apply a little tension. I'd rather have it hang over the edge than not meet the edge. We're coming through that zipper right there, be cognizant. Coming down the ramp. Now we're back in normal material. You could fill this bag, concrete, lead shot, whatever. The bag will take it. You can put more weight in this bag than you care to carry. And what we're doing here is this is the platform that we're going to sew the handles on the ends of the bag through. So those handles, they'll never tear off of there, and they're not through a single layer of material. We're reinforcing the material to put the other handles on is what we're doing right now. You can see I did not quite catch that right there. This was probably the stitch. I came down a little low right there. You can see it, they didn't meet. You're not really gonna see that. You zoom in here, show them what I'm talking about. That's what we want it to look like. That's what it did look like. Now, once this is set in place, we could nick this and pull these out and then sew it from the top if you cared to. If we were doing this bag with red thread, that is exactly what we would do. So there's that. Let's go ahead and duplicate over here. Actually, we need to come, I want to come from this side. Depending which hand you are, I like to work from the outside of the machine rather than the inside, especially when I have bulk. I'm sure there is some guy out there that feels that he's better off sewing from the inside, so whatever works for you. I'm pulling this and kind of laying this down. I want this webbing to lay very flat on here. I don't want any pillowing. Flip it over, see if we accomplish that. It's nice and flat right there. It's a little pillow there, but you're not going to see it. All right. These are the handles we're going to put on here. Again, I'm going to make my handles. 12, 16, 13, 14, 15, yep. So I'm gonna go 8. Let's double check that. Yep, 8 both directions. Make my marks. So my handles are 5. I'm gonna transfer from this one to the other one rather than have to measure it over again. I'm going to sew this on the outside so I can see my marks. You could also do it to the inside where you have no marks. This is colored pencil. It will wipe off. You could also put silicone tubing over this. You could put garden hose over this. There's all kinds of stuff you can do to make a more robust handle. There is no right or wrong. It's just a lot of guys look at stuff and build what other people have built, and that's the right way. And the only reason they're building it that way is because the guy before them built it that way. The length of these handles are built just enough that they stick out. You can grab them. I didn't make them bigger because I don't want the possibility of them catching on other things. These bags are typically not something I'm carrying stuff around in a lot. They're going from the truck to the airplane, or from a truck to another truck, or from a truck onto a four-wheeler or a side-by-side. These are big bags, and guys ask for them all the time. My personal preference is, if I don't have to use this bag, I would prefer to use 3 kit bags or 3 clothes bags instead of the super kit bag. You can really, they get very, very heavy. You can put a lot of weight in these. I have a bunch of these filled with MREs. I've probably got 20 of these stuffed so full of MREs you can't put another single MRE in them. They're very dense. We never did a test with these. We did the test with the tool bags where we filled them with gravel and then threw them high in the air as we can, as short a distance as possible, because we wanted as much energy smashing the ground. And we did that mile test on them on that back road. We never did it with this because when we filled them up, we couldn't lift them. We couldn't throw them when they were full of gravel. All right, there's that. We're gonna take and sew these onto this platform right here now. What I'm looking for here is how far from the edge did I sew these? It looks like it's 3 inches is the magic number. That's the inside edge right there. I'm going to mark right past here so I can see it when I cover it. I'm just going to take this. And then again, do you want this down so the clean edge is on the outside, or do you want it on the inside so that your hand grabs? It really doesn't matter. It's just how you want to do it. And do I want it here? This webbing here, this 13 is 1 3/4, whereas this platform is 2 inches. I'm just going to nail it right in the middle. And if I was sewing right here and I was going off the edge, I would just make my stitch pattern a little bit smaller or larger until it goes literally from end to end. I should have counted how many well, it didn't matter. I'm going to go to 3 inches. A lot of times when I'm trying to make a perfect box, or box X, I will count my stitches. And then I know if it was 10, then I'm going to do 10 on the next edge of it, wherever it's falling perfect. And just because my machine on my stitch size says, well, I don't know what the fuck that says, it's so worn out, but you can't go just by that number. All these machines are, over time, they just do different things. Is that all the rain we're getting? The storm's over?
Probably.
I hope not, man. We really need some rain. Jack was here, our farmer friend. He's got over 1,000 acres in right now, and he's like, man, I'm starting to get concerned. I really need some rain. All right, we're gonna go 3 inches right here. I'm going to check underneath and verify that I am through the webbing on both sides. I am. I'm not off, and just do single cordura. And right here, I'm going to tack this in well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should have just done 4, but I'm going to go over here, zigzag over. I'm going to tack this in. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to travel back to here to make an X. You don't need to make that X, just a zigzag would have done it. I'm going to come back over it. I'm going to come down here, tack it in, and terminate. That one's done. We're going to do the same thing over here. And then once this one's done, we're going to do the exact same thing 2 more times on the other side. See how it just fell perfect? That's exactly how the size stitch I want in there. Coming right to this line here, 3 inches. That's what I've got that marked at. There's that one at 4. I'll zigzag over. I'm gonna tack this in 3 times. And all that does is if somehow that came off of there, I've got this backup right here. Zigzag over. I'm going to lock that in, so that's actually like 7 lines of stitching up there at the top. It gets to the point where your adding thread doesn't do a whole lot. you would go up to a bigger thread size. Like you could even take right there and use cord instead of thread. You would use like a type 6, type 7 machine. I had 2 type 7 machines. The tables were 4 by 8 feet, and the needle was the size of a ballpoint pen cartridge. That machine, they told us it would sew through 1/2 inch of plywood, so we did it, and it does all day long. It'll sew through a 1/2 inch of plywood. And there's the handle. It's very robust. We used to take these bags and we would take this with a snap link, hang it up, and have other guys do pull-ups on the other side. We did the same thing with our shoulder sets. You always get a young Marine. They travel in packs, and there was always one asshole. He was usually the bigger guy, also usually the dumber guy. And he was like, "Why are these so expensive? Why should I pay $250? I sell that rig for $1,000 all day long now. Why should I pay $250 for this when I can get that for $100? And we were never mean to them because they were dumb. We would take snap links and take the shoulder strap drag handle and clip it up to a dip and chin up bar that we took to the gun show with us. And we take the 2 biggest Marines and go, okay, you 2 on these pockets, you on these pockets, you on these pockets, do pull-ups. And they would do pull-ups on them. I'm like, did you hear any stitches pop? Now you take this set of pockets and you take this set, play tug of war, try to rip this apart. Run at it, put as much slack, whatever you want to do, try to break this rig. And then we'd take one of the pockets, the same pockets that were sewn, and I go, put your shoe in this, put your foot in here, and jerk on this and try to pull this pocket apart. Now go over there to that table and go fucking pick up that vest and try that. And they never did. Like, they wouldn't let them. You could literally, those were those mesh vests. Blackhawk made them, Eagle made them. And that's what he was talking about. Why is that vest $79 and this is $250? And it's not because Eagle or Blackhawk made it, it's just how it was made and the materials it was made out of. Every sniper school, some kid would show up with those vests and they would do wounded man drills. Okay, your shot, your shot, your shot, your shot. Partner, grab that drag strap and pull them back to the truck. And the first thing, they'd grab that and jerk that, and those handles ripped off all the time. And on the next day, those kids would come in and go, hey, can you repair this? And we couldn't repair it. It would take so much time and money to repair it. It was less costly to buy one of our rigs. And they all bought our rigs. And while they were on the sniper school roster, they got 20% off. As long as they were in school, they would get 20% off at anything in my shop. Same with recon. Any of them going through recon or sniper school, they got 20% off. And then every class that graduated, we would give honor grad and high shooter a full kit. So he would get a patrol vest back then. He'd get a patrol vest, a belt, a hydro carrier, a butt pack, and a tack holster and a patrol subload. So they were getting, you know, a lot of gear. And those kids, they were paying for that out of their own pocket. The Marine Corps was not buying it for them then. You can sew backwards when you're doing these box X's. I find that a lot of times, rather than turning the product every different direction there, that when I go in reverse, a lot of times that last stitch will come out. It won't be locked. So you are better off just turning the work when you're doing that, depending on how your machine's tuned. I'm sure somebody's like, nope, mine does it every time. That's awesome. A lot of them don't. When you see really good deals on sewing machines too, like I tell kids all the time, buy a Consew 206. And they'll send me, I found one for 200 bucks. They don't have reverses on them, which is okay. You just have to turn the work every time. I don't know how many years sewing machines didn't have reverses, but there's a lot of sewing machines out there with no reverse. And you can usually get those machines for a few $100, and that's why, because they're not sought after because they don't have a reverse. Man, there's a ton of good info in this video. I might go back and watch this one myself. I actually do. I do watch all the build videos myself. I rewatch them. I've done a terrible job about taking these and linking them into the product pages. I also always intend to go back after we put them up and retitle them after a few months. How to build a whatever, you know? Because we use some title that works for the algorithm, but once the initial push of the video's out there, it'd be, and a lot of times I'll go to find my video and I can't find my damn video myself because I don't know what it was about, you know?
Yeah.
All right, now we put the bag together. This is the part I like the least. If we were sewing 100 of these out there and I was sewing production with them, I would be running the zippers because I can just literally run them in a line super fast, super loud, and it sets the pace. If I am out there on the production floor sewing wide open and Miranda's sewing wide open, everybody else is sewing wide open too. It's a trip. Days when I'm out there on the floor, like we film on Wednesday and Friday. On Monday and Tuesday, especially when I'm out there sewing, when I'm present, we have way more work done. It's probably 30% more. And the only variable is that I'm out there actually running a machine loudly and wide open. It's just like cadence. The guy on PT, the guy running, when he's singing and singing cadence, that sets the movement, that sets the pace. Everybody will operate to the tone of the leader. All right, there's that. All right, here, let's go put these snaps in. It's way easier to do it right now. All right, here's the soldering station we use. Just came off of Amazon. If you've ever soldered anything for real or worked in a factory, you know what this is, but this plugs in. Just like I said, I keep this right up here for storage. When we put it away, we're going to try to not solder, try to not punch through this cord right here. And we're going to line these up. At least I think we're going to line these up. I need this cart to be just a little bit bigger. All right, there we go. I'm gonna step back here because that's gonna go into the seam and get edge taped. There we go. We're at 728 degrees. This should punch through just fine. We just need a marked on the second, on the underside there. So there's that. There's that, okay. So we're just gonna open those up. It's really throwing me off having this here because it's usually hot and I don't want to burn this. The underside is the important side. That's where that post is going to come from. So I just want to get this mark right here, just enough that we can see it here, and then we can push it here, wallow it out a little bit. Same here, it's not through enough. That's it. This is me as I work back and forth. I leave shit laying everywhere. So get that post through there. Set that right there. Get it into place, lock it in. This will fit upside into the die there. Get this through here, holding it in place, set it in. Perfect. Now, can we duplicate that? Ooh, I'm putting it in the wrong side. Let me cut this out.
Back out though.
I use a front end cutter and just literally cut them. It kind of goes under the snap and cuts the post. And these are brass, so yeah, they're pretty simple to cut off.
Oh, I know what you're saying, like a front end cutter that. I gotcha.
Those front end
You can
dikes.
grab underneath it.
Yeah, you could use just a normal pair of dikes that would do it. There we go. There we go.
Boom.
All right, now we got those snaps in. I'm gonna go ahead and sew this over here while no, I have to edge tape this. I'm like, what am I'm missing something here. I gotta edge tape this, clean this up. How long have I been building this?
About 2 hours.
2 hours. That's funny. People giving Andrew a hassle about $400 for a bag, saying there's no possible way it takes 8 hours to build that backpack, and we're already 2 hours into this thing. People just have no idea, man. We are literally so spoiled as a society. We've been so accustomed to just going to the store and getting something and having no concept of what it took to actually make that thing. The United States acts like it's not okay with slavery, right? We've spent the last 30 years flogging ourselves and having such an issue over the slavery, right? But we so willingly use products every day that come from countries that use slavery. This is a little ugly under here. I'm going to back up and show you this. So that didn't quite make that angle there, so I'm going to nick out just one stitch. And I'm going to be able to get up in there, pop that out, and get that to lay flat now. And now, in theory, it should be. Voila! About perfect. Except because I nicked that stitch out, I want to go back and put that stitch right there in. And connect those two sides. That one did great. It was just that one. I just felt it when it came up. I felt it was a little thicker there, so. Now, I'm just snapping this in place so that I'm going to pull this over. Yes, that's single stitched. We're about to sew over it a bunch more though. We're just finding center. Are they equal? Man, they are equal. Imagine that, it actually came out right. That mark's still there, but we covered that one. That's why we had to find that there. All right, there's the very top center. We're about to forget one more. Brandl's about to forget one more thing here. Let's correct this.
Oh yeah.
That's right. Ooh, I already messed this up. Do you know when these builds go so smooth? You know why?
Why?
Because I built it the night before already. And the one we're building right there, I had built another one the night before. Okay, these on this tie into here. So I'm gonna unstitch this and we're gonna pop this in here. These connect over the top. These are just compression straps. So if you got an insane amount of weight in here, or you have something so large in here that you cannot zip the zipper, you can use these. These get compression straps and buckles. Now I have 5 lines of stitching in this damn thing here, and it does not want to come apart. Literally the most important stitching on the bag. And it's gonna be ugly. All right, there's that. Unstitched. Let's get all of these out of here for the most part. Not scratch that webbing up too bad. Not cut any fibers in the webbing. There's that. Now let's do that 3 more times. It would help if I got a new fresh razor blade, but on the other hand, that's a double-edged sword. If you just even touch anything with a fresh laser blade, it slices and cuts it, so I think I would probably rather have the dull one. Apply a lot of pressure, expose the stitches, slice the stitches a little bit. This is one of those things right here. We're at the home run there. We're at the very end stretch. And you get in a hurry. And if you nick this Cordura and put a hole in it, that product's done. You could patch it or embroider over it or whatever, you know, if it's your own stuff, but you couldn't ever send it to a customer that way. which is part of production too, man. You have a person shows up to work that sews this stuff, and they have a slip or an oops. They don't care. They don't see a $250 bag that can't be sold. They just see a, oh, my bad, sorry. And that happens every day. That's why places are going to robots. Automation. Robot doesn't get sick, robot's mom doesn't die, robot doesn't drink too much on the weekend, the robot runs all weekend, the robot runs 24 hours a day.
Until the robot runs
away.
Yeah.
Until the robot decides he doesn't need you anymore. Yeah, sometimes they don't put all the lockouts in place and a robot smashes a guy at a factory. He didn't feel much of it though. It happened pretty quick, if you've ever seen any photos of it. We have a friend that maintains all the robotic stuff at some big factories. So every now and then I get to see photos of when a guy gets killed. You're like, what is that big stain? What was that greasy spot right there? And it's always that he did something he shouldn't be doing. They always...
There's always some reason to work faster, that they skip a little procedure.
Yeah, well, it's got 4 or 5 lockouts on the thing, you know. In theory, you shouldn't even be able to get it to move at that position. And usually there's redundancy even, like it takes 2 guys, you know. Like on clicker presses and big equipment, when you set your die and your plate in to cut the material, and the press is like the thing weighs 20,000 pounds on its own. It's just this huge piece of cast iron, and it's a plate, and you set your plate, and then to run it, you have to have your hand on this button here, and then you have to have your other hand pull the trigger, and the trigger won't pull unless your hand, so intentionally your hands can't be here, because it'll shear it off. It'll look like it surgically just removed it. Though you won't even, you might wipe some blood out of there, but there won't be anything there. It's like when guys get run over, their toes get run over by a forklift. There's nothing there. There's nothing to reconstruct. There's nothing left. You just bring in a mop and you clear the goo off the floor. All right, so these get sewn inboard right here. These do get a tab on them. I'll go ahead and do that right now. It'll be easier than trying to do it moving the whole bag. This here is just here to keep the buckle from coming off. I don't know what the real size on this is, but this looks right. It's faster for me to clean these parts right now while I know where all 8 thread edges are than to have to look at the bag and find all the pieces that need burned. It's just so much quicker, especially if you're building a single piece. If you're a one-man shop, inevitably you're going to miss something once the whole thing's together. And Nowadays, everybody has a $1,000 phone, which makes them a $50,000 photographer. That thing is the microscope. Inevitably, when you send a piece of gear to your customer, that one blemish is always going to be the piece that they take a picture of, and they're going to put that on the internet. And that is going to represent a lot of people's first impression of your product. All right, so this is just going to go inboard. I'm going to sew this back in like we did. That does not sound good. That crunchy sound, like somebody just threw gravel in my bobbin carrier. A lot of people talk like that. They sound like they got marbles in their mouth. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
I think it's from inbreeding.
Could be.
People that have no jawline. Like me.
Too much molasses.
I didn't really see that till I moved here.
Hey man, we're all mountain people.
It must be what it is, man. You didn't have any of that TNB either. Maybe it was in California, but you didn't see it because maybe there's just so many people, so it's rarer. There's less people here, so the percentage is easier to see. That
There's just more overweight people.
Oh, you know what TNB is? It's Tennessee booty. Oh man. So I'm building this bag for Wrangler Star. My intention was to tag him in this video. Oh, let's clear that out of there. If you don't clear all those extra threads, that loose pieces out of there, the customer will get that thing and he will think it's coming apart. You ever thought about moving to Alabama?
Nope.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah, my mom used to live there when I was a kid.
I really like it. I think we
Too
should.
hot.
I think we should get a. We should get another house there so we can just go there on weekends when we want to.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, especially in the winter time.
Even when it's hot, though, I mean, there's so much. Like, are you going to be out in the heat? You have air conditioning in your car.
Yeah, and then still just don't like it. You need places that rain.
Then we can sneak into the Space Center and see what's really going on.
I'm okay with that too.
They spend a lot of money to keep up that that whole story.
I like Huntsville.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do like Huntsville.
Lots of Germans.
But I feel like Huntsville is kind of like Tennessee. It's only a couple hours away. It's not very Alabama.
It's not very what?
Alabama.
Man, you can buy some big houses in Alabama. There are some enormous estates in Alabama that you could actually afford. Oh man, I forgot to pull that. See what, this is what happens here. Look how nasty this looks. Because I didn't pull the loose threads out of the backside. You're gonna see this and think that's coming apart. And it's just the threads that I didn't clean out of there beforehand. That one I did pull out of there. This thing's heavy. It's really pulling. It's fighting me. When you're going to turn, you want this stitch, you want that needle all the way down, just barely starting to come back up when you make your turn. It'll still be connected in the hook and it'll lock the stitch. When you see me and it looks like I go to sew and then I move it back a little, it's because it didn't catch the stitch. The stitch had already let go, so I went back and brought the stitch back in. That's what's happening there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then it has no bearing on you. All right, now, what parts have I forgot? What happened here? How did I sew that back in and not get the tail in there? Where is the tail?
No.
What? And I've got this one backwards. How did I do that? It must have fallen out when I was doing it. Okay, so young Brandel forgetting parts again. This doesn't happen when you're not here. This never happens unless there's a camera here.
Just giving me more practice.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Up
Practice.
to 30 something years.
Yes, I need a little practice.
You need to just do some more of it.
As soon as we get my chimpanzee breeding facility up and running, we can just stop all this sewing nonsense.
What are you going to do then?
Planet of the Apes.
Facing the right way.
Yeah, I already checked it. The real question is, are the other three facing the right way? They'll work either way, they just all have to four be the same way. I see a lot of companies doing stuff where their pull tabs are backwards. They still function, but they have no idea why a pull tab is one way or the other. broke the thread. It's all right, we got a few stitches in there, we're good. It's all those cookies you made me eat. We've moved this, or did we put the center marks in this? Or have we moved this so much it's wiped the marks off? No, I'm just gonna cut it and sew it to the other way. No, there's no sense in pulling that out. Every time we cut that apart, we risk slicing that material. Which really wouldn't matter even if we sliced it. You can literally just go. If there was a slice right here, you could just go and just tack it in and it would be good as can be. You would just see it though. Now the real question is, can we sew these without sewing through this? And all those straps. I don't know why I even cut these threads all off right now. I'm gonna sew right past them again. So that's the center, top dead center. You can sew, you can turn it around and sew to the other end like I just did. I'm just gonna stretch it into place and then sew back. I'm gonna start right here. I'm gonna about a stitch away from the edge, tack it in, run it forward. And I'm sewing pretty close to the edge. I'm gonna come back around this and put another line of stitching in it in a minute. Because I'm in it to win it. And poet, you didn't know it. Did you know Garth Brooks had a heavy metal band?
I didn't know.
Rock band. You really didn't know that? He didn't tell anybody it was him. Put out an album, booked concerts, and did a whole series, like a whole tour, and never told anybody it was him until after he did it. Did you really not know that? It's pretty much what I did. I just never told anybody I started a rock band.
You have a rap group, a rock band?
Rock rap,
Rock rap. You poured with Limp Bizkit?
talk rap, sing talk. I really wish Fred Durst would get himself in some kind of shape. For you guys wondering how come we just don't sew this all the way around, you can, but I can't. It'll come out canted. It won't be clocked correctly. That's why I find the center on all sides, and then I line them up and do them all one at a time. It just comes out much cleaner for me that way. Or just not, did I not do that side? Got it, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. It wouldn't matter, as long as you just do it in each side in halves. It is, yeah. But you're probably better off not doing all of one side, you know? Especially when you're learning how to put the entire bag together, especially on a big bag, it'll really, you have some room for it to stretch and slide and get out of square. There it is, there's that, there's that. I want to start about a stitch from the edge when I start this. I suppose it doesn't matter if you even over sewed it, but you'll see why in a second here. And I don't care if you've got the bulk of it down or the smaller part down, it doesn't matter. It's just wrangling all of the weight of the bag. And then lining those lines up there, that center. And I like to do half of each side first. So if you have stretch or anything, it doesn't push it all one direction. Even if it moves it, it didn't move it as much. And then once you have it all together, I would do it single stitch, have it all together, turn it inside out, look at it. If it looks proper, turn it back inside out, and then sew around it twice more. And edge tape it if you're going to. And if you're running quality control, especially on a new sewing machine person, sewing operator, I would have somebody look at all their work before you edge tape the product, because they could very well be close to the edge and even off the edge in places, conceal it with edge tape, and you won't know what's under there. So look at the work first, make sure it's how you want it, then edge tape it and conceal it. Man, this is actually going together about perfect. Now, yeah, see how it looks like I'm overlapping? All I gotta do is now move this seam over here underneath, and I'm pretty close. Like, I've got a little extra here, so I'll just kind of push it back into that pleat there. And when this is together, you'll never even realize that that pleat is there. And that's why we do it in little pieces instead of, whereas if we sewed it all the way around, if I'm gonna get, and it's how you sew it too. If I've got a 1/4 inch pleat here, I'm gonna end up with 8 1/4-inch pleats, you know. So instead of having, I'd rather have a 1/4 in every side than 2 inches in one side.
Yeah.
That's why I take bites at it like that. Now I'm just going to pull these corners, make sure they're even on both sides, which they were. Needle strike right about the center of the product, center of the work. That foot's still locking up. There we go. And when you're doing big, heavy, bulky products, bags, rifle cases and stuff, you can build an extension on your table to where it supports the weight. So you might have an 8-foot table instead of this 24-inch table here. You might have an 8-foot table out in front of you. Where did that bobbin go? I don't know what this bag sells. I think we get 250 bucks for this bag. I can't wait for all the internet guys who are not familiar to tell me that this is a $40. They could build this bag for $40. I'm like, that's awesome. I'll take 100 of them. When can you deliver? Because you're an unknown entity, I'll have my attorney go ahead and contact you. And once you sign the contract, we'll send you over a deposit so you can get started. Could you have them in 30 days? Is that reasonable?
You think people will post about it on his video?
Post about this?
Yeah.
On whose video?
Right. If he was to show it or something?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when they hear the price of it. Absolutely. There's always going to be some anonymous person who has no bearing and is not even a potential customer that's going to take issue with what you're doing. The beauty of it is, if they truly believe what they're saying, that person, the person who is talking ill about another company or what somebody else is doing, those people don't have a lot going on in their life. People that have a lot going on in their life never talk trash on the internet. You see positivity, but you don't see negativity. And those people spend their free time talking to others. And it's not, when a guy's trashing some company or a product, it's never his first time doing it. He usually has a history of that. And for every one person commenting, there's 10,000 watching that are not. And I call that guy Bob, right? When Bob shows up to talk trash, people know who and what Bob is. And there's many examples. A good example is, we will come in on a Monday morning and Amanda goes, somebody's talking trash on the internet. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, we sold 20 12-gauge micro rigs. And I go, yeah, that's a little bizarre. A lot of micro rigs on one weekend, a lot of 12-gauge micros. And she goes, yeah, but most of the orders are back to back to back. They're consecutive numbers. So I message those guys and I go, hey, thank you for your order. We had an abnormally large amount of orders for this same product. Can you tell me how you heard about it? And about half of them you will actually hear back from. And of that 50%, say we did 20 orders, 10 guys are going to reply, and they're going to send you a link to the thread on the internet where Bob is talking trash. And Bob truly believes what he's saying, probably, but people don't believe in Bob. And it always translates to sales every single time. There literally is no such thing as bad publicity, especially on the internet. Especially on a high volume thread like that one on Wrangler Star last night. When I saw the thread, when I saw the video, it was less than 2 hours uploaded and it had 500 comments. I knew when I saw 500 comments on that video, something was going on in there. All right, so this is all together. And now I'm going to start and sew this whole thing back over again. I'm just going to make a mark right here, right where I'm starting, and I'm going to sew back over this whole thing. Normally, this would not be the same person. The person that put the bag together in the quadrants would then hand it to another person who is less skilled, who can just over sew this and put the next line in. And then they're going to hand it to the next person who's going to put the edge tape on. Stuttering right there on that thick webbing for the handle. Here we are back at the where we started, where I did the X. And come right up, right past there, lock it in, and there it is. I'm pretty sure our girl out there, Red, I'm pretty sure we can put her in this bag, which would be a whole lot faster than filling this with air cells or crumpled up paper or gear even. All right, there's that. Now we're gonna edge tape this, but let's close this up, make sure I've got these where I need these to be. That goes there. This one's correct. This one is not. There we go, that's the one. You want to slice the stitches, not the webbing. Get you guys a package of 100 or 50 razor blades. Screw it right onto the edge of your workstation, your cut table, whatever. These are consumables. Throw them away, pull another one out. They're not expensive. Get you a package of 100 razor blades. You can use them also just for wiping all the threads out when you have to cut things apart. You will have to cut things apart. Most of the things I cut apart, well, all the things I cut apart are something that I sewed wrong. Made a 4-mag war bag night before last night. And then last night I started another 4-mag war bag. All right, there's that. Let's fill this up and we'll take some epic B-roll shots of it.